So what's up, guys? Today I'm going to tell you how NIO stock can possibly 3x in 2025 when this happens. Of course, on my channel I share the good stuff and the bad. And recently there's actually been some shit that's been going on with NIO here in China. Pretty nasty, but perhaps I shouldn't really talk about it. But unless if you guys really want to, know about it, then I'll let you guys know. But leave it in the comments. Do you guys want to know the shit that's going on, or you want me to just zip it and, hide it from you guys, so to speak, and then maybe let that surprise you guys somehow. But we're going to talk about some really good stuff in this video. First, we're going to talk about something that just happened here in China. Of course, the limitation of materials for chip making that China has just implemented, and China has also warned its own domestic companies against using chips from foreign companies. So that also implies that perhaps Chinese companies shouldn't use foreign-made chips such as NVIDIA's ORNX chips, or in the future NVIDIA's Thor chips, which provides a very good opportunity for NIO to do its own chip licensing business, to sell its own chips to other car companies. And, you're seeing this kind of ongoing tech war that's going on, where the Americans kind of try to limit China from making semiconductors, and China's sort of fighting back by saying, hey, if you're going to limit us, then we're not going to export the raw materials to you guys, back and forth. But this, in general, really benefits NIO because NIO has their own chip. All right, NIO has their own NX 9031 super god brain chip for autonomous driving, and that, along with its software licensing, will be very big catalysts down the line in the future. But of course, that doesn't itself make the stock 3x in 2025. That could make it 10x in 2026, 2027. But what about 2025? What has to happen in 2025 for NIO stock to 3x? Well, it all comes down to Donald Trump, right? When the Ukraine war happened, NIO stock was in like the high 20s, all right? And then afterwards, of course, the geopolitical tensions, a lot of investors had this kind of hostility towards Chinese companies because the government is overall very hostile towards China as an ally to Russia. And, they're kind of not so much imposing restrictions and sanctions, but definitely their attitude is similar to that, okay? So there's always been that ongoing tension, and we could say that NIO stock is unfairly discounted because of it being a Chinese company compared to something like Rivian or an American company, where the valuations will be much richer. But what Donald Trump has promised is, of course, the end to the Ukrainian war. He said that once he's in office, he's going to sit both those guys down and find a resolution to the war and end the war. And of course, if this happens, then the tensions would subside a little bit, all right? There's no more war going on. There's no more reason to be super hostile towards China or Chinese companies by that extent. And so to speak, that would make Chinese companies are a lot more investable. A lot more people will be willing to put their money into Chinese stocks. And of course, you would definitely see a surge in Chinese stocks when that day comes, right? If a peace treaty comes. And of course, the war can't go on forever. There's going to be a peace treaty signed sometime or another, right? So when that happens and Donald Trump delivers that, then you could see Chinese stocks really start to fly, including NIO stock, potentially 3x, from now in the 4s up to maybe 10 plus, right, very, very soon. But of course, that sort of is determined by Trump delivering that peace deal, okay? But of course, going forward, you're still going to see some hostilities. And I think as a company in general, NIO is kind of uniquely positioned to not overly rely on foreign companies, right? Especially when China came out with that news, hey, don't use chips from the West. Well, NIO is one of the few companies that can say, hey, yeah, we're ready for this, right? If China says, hey, don't use software from the West, don't use Android, right? Hey, NIO's got their own SkyOS. In a sense, if China does this kind of enforces this restriction that you're not allowed to use stuff from the West, so to speak, then that would benefit NIO tremendously if it's like enforced. A lot of car automakers software, they're based on Android, right? And imagine like Huawei, when they lost access to Android use, they had to come up with their own software. So of course, NIO, even back in like 2018, 2019, they've been sitting at the front seat witnessing this happen. The Huawei dilemma, Huawei not being able to use Android, Huawei not being able to use the chip manufacturing process, and so to speak, and it's a big deal. And of course, they're preparing for this. And even before I bought this car, I talked to some NIO owners close to the CEO. They know exactly the potential hurdles that they might face in the future, such as these kind of restrictions, whether it's from the West or from China itself. The West saying, hey, Android, you're not allowed to work with Chinese companies, or China saying, hey, you're not allowed to work with Western companies. So, NIO's been preparing for this, and that's why they built their own chip. Right? Even back way back in 2020, 2021, I told you guys that NIO was going to build their own chip. Of course, they built their own chip, and NIO built their own software as well, right, from the ground up. So they are truly sanction-proof. They are truly sort of independent from the Western companies, so to speak. And if there was that restriction, like right now, they're telling Chinese companies not to use Western stuff, the government, well, NIO is positioned to be able to do that. Everybody else, they can't really do that because they still need NVIDIA's chips. They still need to use Google's Android for their operating system. They're kind of handicapped in that aspect. Of course, China's not enforcing this rule. They're sort of just recommending, Chinese companies not use foreign stuff. But you see where we're going at, right? Like NIO is the only company out there that is kind of vertically integrated, right? That is vertically integrated in the sense that they have their own chip, they have their own software. You can ban us from using Android. We don't need Android. You can ban us from using NVIDIA. We don't need NVIDIA, right? And I really wish that day comes, even though that might be a terrible day that China says, hey, you're not allowed to use Android and NVIDIA. That would be a terrible day for the auto industry in general here in China, but it would be uniquely good for NIO because NIO is the only one that can do this, that can pull it off, right? So I'm very bullish for the future of NIO because they're very vertically integrated, right? And I'm very bullish in general with NIO because of, if peace comes with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, Chinese companies are going to benefit, Chinese stocks are going to benefit, NIO is going to benefit tremendously, and we can see huge, massive gains with NIO stock, just simply thanks to a peace that is, drawn thanks to Donald Trump. So very soon we could see that happen in as early as 2025. Everybody's sick of this war going on. We don't want wars to continue. We want it to end soon. So we'll see, right? And hopefully, NIO triples in 2025. Hopefully. All right. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.